Great, thank you very much indeed for that panel discussion, which was absolutely fascinating, as I'm sure you'll agree, and also quite sobering, although I have to say, as a history graduate, I was particularly pleased that I think I can safely say this is the first City UK event we've ever had which had a reference to the Treaty of Westphalia. So, Joe, thank you very much indeed for that. That brought back some pretty unhappy memories of late-night essay crises. We now move on to our next keynote speech of the day, and we're absolutely delighted to be joined by Daisy Cooper MP, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats and the Treasury Spokesperson for the Liberal Democrats. Daisy was elected as the Member of Parliament for St Albans in 2019, became Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats the following year, and has long expertise from a distinguished career before politics in Commonwealth issues and international affairs prior to entering Parliament. Could you please welcome her to the stage?
I'm only 5'4". Here we go. Good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation to join you. We Liberal Democrats believe in something simple but powerful. We should talk up our country, because Britain is an extraordinary nation with enormous untapped potential. We are one of the world's largest economies. Our financial and professional services make us a trade superpower. We benefit from the unique combination of language, law, and location. We have strong institutions, dynamic markets. We are the world's second largest destination for fintech investment after the US. We continue to be the most attractive destination for fintech in Europe, and we are the third largest market for AI. Ours is a country that is not in decline. Ours is a country waiting to be unleashed. But we must also be honest, because right now, Britain is stuck in a doom loop of low economic growth. And when we look around the world, and when we look in the rearview mirror, we can see other countries catching up fast. Because other economies are innovating, they're investing, and preparing for the future. We cannot take our position for granted. We need to be ambitious. And our Liberal Democrat response to this is clear. And I'll cover just 3 points today. First, in the face of global instability, we must strengthen our ties with our reliable European allies. That starts with a far better trading deal with Europe, a new bespoke UK-EU customs union. This is the single biggest growth lever immediately available to the government. It would boost business, it would create jobs, it would slash red tape, and raise billions of pounds for public services in a fair way. £25 billion a year in the medium term. In addition, we believe the government should act now to use the UK-EU Financial Regulatory Forum to secure important wins for the industry, to secure a deal on mutual recognition of qualifications, and to agree a youth mobility scheme, something which it agreed only in principle last May. Second, to make our economy more resilient against economic shocks, we must build our sovereign capabilities in energy, food, and defence security. And we can harness the power of financial and professional services to make families and businesses more resilient. On energy, we were the only party to make a general election manifesto commitment to cut the link between oil and gas to drive down prices, something announced by the government this week. We've also announced our intention to create a new energy security bank, working with high street lenders to roll out affordable loans to households, communities and small businesses to invest in insulation, solar panels and heat pumps. Alongside that, we would reform the energy market, improving competition, especially for small businesses. I personally have been calling on the CMA and Ofgem to launch such an investigation without delay. Our goal is clear: to halve energy bills for households and businesses over the long term. On food security, we would recognise food security as a public good, and we would include the food and farming sector in the industrial strategy. And on defence, we must match ambition with action. We propose time-limited defence bonds, targeted investment to strengthen our capabilities, to boost industry and support jobs. another Liberal Democrat idea that is apparently being considered by the Chancellor. All of this is about security, but it is also about economic strength. And third, we must boost growth by making the UK the best place in the world to start and scale a business, and for businesses to stay and create spin-offs. We rightly celebrate the fact that the UK is one of the best places for startups in the world. But many startups, including fintech, hit a wall, the so-called valley of death, where funding dries up before they can scale, so they leave, taking growth, jobs, and opportunities with them. So we would fix that. We would fix it by increasing early-stage investment limits, by improving access to follow-on funding, and by reforming research and development tax relief so it's approved in advance, not after the investment, and moving to a model where applications are assessed by scientists and technical experts, not by HMRC compliance teams. We would change government procurement so it backs innovation, not just established revenue, and we will unlock the full potential of our world-leading universities, reforming IP ownership and university visas to support spin-outs, student startups, and research commercialisation. Because we believe that Britain should not just be inventing the future, we should be building it here too. To conclude, Britain is not a country without options. The question is not whether we can grow again. The question is whether we have the vision and the courage to act, to deepen our ties with our biggest and most reliable economic partners, to invest in our country's resilience and harness our financial professional services to do so, and to make sure that the UK is the best place in the world to start and grow a business. Those are just some examples, some parts of our vision. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Daisy, for that incredibly insightful and valuable contribution. I know the Liberal Democrats have a long history of engaging in foreign policy and international relations, and we in the city have always been incredibly grateful for the focus that you give a set of issues that sometimes don't get the attention they deserve in our political system. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tim Fassam. I'm the Public Affairs Director at Standard Life, and I'm also the Chair of the Public Affairs Group, and it's my privilege to ask Daisy a few questions following up from that speech. Now, I thought you made a very passionate argument for closer links with the European Union, full membership of the Customs Union, closer alignment with the single market. But clearly that's not a decision we can make unilaterally. And what do you see as the likely response in European capitals to the UK trying to forge that closer relationship?
Well, the world is changing, and the world is changing very quickly. We saw in February, when negotiations were happening between the UK and the EU, a top EU official saying that the European Commission was ready to engage on this issue. They said they had an open mind and they were ready to engage. Those are direct quotes. So there is an appetite to have a conversation about a potential customs union. We know as a party from our connections across Europe, we have sister parties in many European countries. We're a member of the Association of Liberal and Democratic European parties. And we know through that ALD network that there's lots of support in lots of capitals across Europe to have this conversation. As I say, the world is changing quickly. And I think when we look at what is happening in the White House, I think it has focused minds. And I think both here in the UK and across Europe, people are looking at how unstable the world is. They're looking at the continuing rise of Russia and China and the instability and uncertainty in America. And I think it is reminding people who our trusted allies are. And I very much hope there is an appetite both here in the UK and the EU to build this closer relationship, starting with a bespoke customs union.
Thank you. And you mentioned there the speed of change, which I think no one can argue against. But those that campaigned for Brexit put very high up on their list of arguments in favour the ability for the UK to build trade deals with other countries around the world. And for financial services, the US is our largest market for exports. So what do you think a customs union would mean for our ability to trade with those other countries, be that the US or fast-growing markets like India or Japan?
Yeah. Well, a customs union applies to goods, not to services. And so if there was a bespoke customs union, you'd need to look at our various trade deals. Now, many of the trade deals we have in the UK were rollover trade deals that we already had when we were in the EU. And so there's very little difference between those. When you look at some of the post-Brexit trade deals that we negotiated, actually some of them aren't very good. So, for example, the Australia trade deal or the New Zealand trade deal, when it comes to trade in goods, we would obviously have to renegotiate any elements that were affected by and included in a new bespoke customs union. Anything outside of what was negotiated in a new customs union would not need to be renegotiated. But it is entirely possible to strike a new bespoke customs union deal with the EU whilst retaining our own trading ability to get deals on services with other countries. Now, of course, I think it would be fantastic if we could get a really good deal with America on services. I don't think that the hindrance to that would be getting a customs union. I think the hindrance to that is the instability and uncertainty of Donald Trump and his tariff wars. So I think we need to press ahead with this. What I'd also say is it's about striking really good trade deals, and it's the size of the trade deal. People say if we got a closer trading relationship with Europe, that could boost GDP by 2.2%. If you compare that to some of the existing deals we have, with Australia, it's 0.8%, with New Zealand, 0.03. They pale into insignificance compared to what we could get with a better trading relationship with Europe. So as a party, we're absolutely clear about where we think we should be focusing our efforts.
Fantastic, thank you. One of the things I noted from your speech, which I agree with, is that some of the comments you were making about our ability to engage in the world were about what we do at home. Mm-hmm. And our recent City UK report, No Time to Lose, which we produced with PwC, which I hope everyone in the room has had a chance to read. It's a really excellent report. But it emphasises and underlines how important competitive regulation, predictable tax system, and strong institutions are to building a foundation that enables us to trade globally. So what would the Liberal Democrats see as the key steps that are needed to maintain those factors rather than undermine them?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll go back to my initial comment. We should talk our country up. We do have strong institutions in this country, and we should be proud about that. Having clear regulation is good for competition. And that's having clear and effective regulation is good for competition. And we should be proud of the institutions that we have. There are some political parties, you can probably guess who I'm referring to, some political parties that would just set fire to the independence of some institutions, like the Bank of England or the OBR or what have you. That is not what we would do. Liberal Democrats believe that we can continually improve our institutions, but you don't do that by burning them down. You do it by reinforcing them, giving the resources and the clarity of mission that they need. So, we saw what happened when Liz Truss tried to sidestep the OBR and it ended in disaster, right? So, but we do recognise there are ways in which we should improve our institutions. I think when it comes to regulation, what I hear from businesses and from financial services organisations is that there's a real concern over pace. They often feel as though the regulators are behind some of the businesses and products that they're regulating. Mm-hmm. That's a question of both resources and skills and making sure that the regulators themselves can retain really good talent. So there's a question there about that. And there is a question about making sure that regulation is clear. So where you have a number of different institutions with overlapping mandates, that can cause frustration. I think there is a role for reforming government itself. An announcement I made recently was to split the Treasury in half, to create a new powerful department for growth, which would include business and trade, and have a separate department for public spending. And the reason for that is because I think over the years, but including in the last 18 months of this government, we have repeatedly seen the urge to create short-term tax gains and short-term tax grabs override long-term growth. And it's really bad for our economic growth, it's bad for stability. And so creating a new government department that means that you could align tax incentives, investment strategies, capital, all pulling in the same direction, I think would give long-term stability. But our ambition goes beyond that. We would want to create a one-stop shop for businesses. I hear from businesses and the city all the time, they have to engage with so many different government departments on so many different issues, and government departments pull in different directions. So making sure that government itself is fit for purpose to boost economic growth, I think is a really important thing to do.
Absolutely, and I think we'd strongly support much of that, and particularly we would, perhaps unsurprisingly, highlight the importance of championing our world-class financial services industry. It's something that I think we as a country can be very proud of. And when we are out talking to the world, actually we do talk about the importance and strength of our regulatory system as being one of the things that gives credibility, can always be improved. So finally, I just wondered, drawing on your extensive experience in international development, what lessons do you think that international development can teach us on how to build effective cross-border partnerships? And what lessons do you think there are for industry as well as government?
Yeah, so when I worked in international affairs at the Commonwealth Secretariat, I was in a room with ambassadors all the time. And I guess there's a couple of things that I observed. The first is that if you're going to go into a negotiation, you really need to have absolute clarity about what you're trying to get out of it, or you get eaten alive. And that might sound really obvious to many of you, who I'm sure are engaged in negotiations all the time. But sadly, I don't think that's always understood in politics and certainly not always understood in government. And I think perhaps if you look at the last negotiations that started between the current government and the EU, I would say on some areas we were slightly eaten alive and we didn't really get a great deal out of it. And so you need real clarity in terms of what you're going in to get. The second thing is that, like in most parts of the world, most parts of life, negotiations work, international agreements happen because of good people and because of relationships. But the difference that I've observed is that in diplomacy and in business, you can go out and headhunt good people. You can recruit them, you can train them, you can mentor them, you can appoint them. In politics, you only have the chance to elect them. Yep. And you can only do that once every few years. And so I guess my message is, if you want to have good people running the country, you've got to pick a team and get behind them.
Excellent, and completely agree on the clarity. And I think one of the advantages of the PwC report that I mentioned earlier is a really clear set of objectives for what the financial services industry needs to be able to support exactly those kind of negotiations.
Yeah.
Now, thank you very much, Daisy. I hugely appreciate your insight today. And if we can thank Daisy in the usual way.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.